So here at the Educating the Advocates Symposium, the really big thing that we're trying to do is just explain to people that IICRC certifications and standards can be utilized by governments, by policymakers, by regulators, and I don't think people really realize that. And so what we're trying to do is help educate folks as to how they can advocate for their firms, their technicians, IICRC certifications, and IICRC standards.
This is the educating the advocates, and so that's what's important, because the advocacy of what we have, and Robbie will go a lot deeper into that situation that he leads and does a great job out there for us. But we are actually here to pretty much establish and promote a lot of nationally and internationally approved standards and recognized by the world out here, and the groups and the insurance carriers, and who all we have interaction with that affects our end result. And who are we here for? We're here for what group? The people that we're out there working for. But we have a lot of associates that we have to intermingle with. The insurance industry.
Morning. I want to thank everyone for coming out, and this is a relatively new initiative that IICRC has, and we did it last year, and this year it's attended a little better, and the goal is to have the Educating the Advocate event to be a well-known event amongst different levels of government, with now tens of thousands of people wanting to get certified and buy these standards. So we made our way through as I go on, and don't worry, I'll stop soon. But as I go on, we created multiple other standards over the years. That was the core beginning, and I know there's some in the room here that could probably add to this and correct me with dates and stuff like that. 2008, they revised the S520, and it kept growing, to the point where these standards get revised and more certified firms show up and more certified technicians. Millie, how many standards are in the works right now? Quick answer. 20.
And so first I will start off with the Applied Microbial Remediation Technician, our AMRT certification. And this certification does have a prerequisite. The WRT, the Water Damage Restoration Technician certification, is a prerequisite for the AMRT. And we do have some exciting news. We are in the middle of getting ready to revise that certification. So that certification is going to be beginning the revision process at the end of this month, and we hope to release the final product in 2025. So we should have a fresh course, fresh exam, updated information for you guys on that. And next, I definitely want to touch on our brand new certification that was just released, the Building Moisture Inspection, the BMI. This certification course is currently in the beta testing phase. So it is not for final release yet, but we look forward to that being absolutely completed and updated and ready to go in 2025.
As you all know, certainly passionate about education and exams for the IICRC, and I sit on the board of directors.
And then we have Beth Johnson with Absolute Flow.
Yep.
And she's local.
I am, yeah. I'm Los Angeles local. Absolute Flood Response and the AFR Construction, we're full service. And we have a small school where we use a lot of the IICRC certifications, and we teach a lot of folks here, certify a lot of folks here in town too.
And then Mr. Stowe with Covenant Restoration.
Yes, my name is John Stowe, and I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have a restoration company there, and I perform expert witnessing and do forensic style investigations on properties. We have about 30 employees, and we service for mitigation, contents, and rebuild.
So Leslie, how does the standards and stuff actually impact your business? I mean, is it good? Is it bad? I mean, how does it impact your company?
it impacts us in so many ways. It elevates our businesses. You know, not only are we following the standards, but when folks are looking for someone, and if you take just the hurricane that came through, they're looking for certified, educated folks that know the right and good way to do the work that needs to be done in their home and in their community. And I would say it elevates our companies, passionate about the continuous improvement that is offered to certified firms, making us better. So I think it elevates our companies.
I love that you say right and good, because it's just the right way to say it. We teach it to our crew. We have sessions where we go over the standards, we talk about them daily. So when we're out in the field talking to adjusters on job sites, other contractors that we have to work with, our crew sounds a step above the people who don't pay attention to those things. So we use it for educating, and it elevates my crew in the field, it elevates their confidence talking to people. They feel like we care enough about them to show them the right and good way to do it. So we use it that way for us.
So from what you're saying, you said that you take it to the technician level. Are you using that to improve the quality of the work that they provide for the customer?
Absolutely. And I try to take the guesswork as much as I can out of it. You know, shall, should, could. Those things get confusing for anybody. So we try really hard to explain those things to our guys so that they have the confidence. We're trying to empower them to make the decisions in real time on the job sites so that they can provide the best service to our customers. For me, it's all about creating a safe space everywhere we go. So the standards for me teach our guys what that means. What is a safe space, and how do we get to that place?
So we take it off of the technicians or the company's responsibility to come up with what should be done when we can reference it back to a standard and say, we're doing this not because of our opinion, but because the standard recommends or suggests or says we shall do something because of what's in that standard. So it really helps us to define clarity. It brings confidence to the consumer, that they gain confidence that we're not just making something up as we go, but we're actually following some guidelines that's been set forth by the industry.
During the entire process of developing the standards, we have to maintain openness. What that means is we cannot have 2, 3, 4 people sitting in a basement or in a garage writing a standard and saying, okay, it's ready, let's publish it. We cannot do it that way. We have to be providing notification to all stakeholders. We have to put out press releases, social media posts, email notifications saying, okay, IICRC as an ANSI accredited standards developer intends to initiate a new project on, let's say, trauma and crime scene, the S540. If you want to initiate that project, if you are interested and if you have expertise in that area, please come apply.
So I know there are a lot of new standards coming out. Are there any conflicting standards that you're aware of from other trade associations that we might need to know about with some of these newer standards that are coming out?
That's a great question. First of all, internally within our standards, we work very hard to harmonize our standards and make sure that there isn't a conflict. It sometimes is a challenge. But externally, ANSI has a mechanism, which I sort of mentioned. When you start a new project, you have to put the word out there. And what that does is, if there is another standards developer that has a similar or overlapping standard, then they have the option to come and object to our standard, and we essentially would not be able to move forward if they are holding sort of the rights to do a particular standard. So that mechanism is in place to ensure that there is no conflict, to try to promote harmonization among standards developers and standards.
Thank you all for this meeting and for inviting me and for having it here in Las Vegas, because what you do is so important, and it fits kind of with some of the committees that I serve on. You know, advocating is also about educating and about contacting and about just presenting your story. And so that's what it's so important that you're doing, and it is good for you personally, it's good for your business and your industry, and it's good for the community if you can make your issues heard and make an impact on policy. Just some of the things that are day-to-day impact on people's lives. They sometimes don't think to come to a member of Congress, but they should, because we're a very good kind of bridge or liaison between the public and the federal bureaucracy, and that's what we spend a lot of time doing and pride ourselves on that. Now, you don't just wait for people to come to you with a particular problem. You got to go to where people are. So you take this kind of show on the road to a senior center or to an environmental park Green Day festival or wherever it is out in the community, so you can see people in their own space. One thing, if you're doing advocacy work, I can tell you just some little pointers about how to be more effective. Always be nice to the person who makes the schedule. That person's got life or death over you, whether you get in to see somebody or not. So, you know, take some candy or some flowers or just be polite, and you'll have a better chance of getting on the agenda. Also, there's so much to read that if your first encounter with a member of Congress is to bring everything you know to try to teach them, they're not going to get through it. If you bring a book this thick, they're not going to read it. So you've got to narrow it down to exactly what you want, do like an executive summary, and share that with the member. And you don't want to waste a lot of time. You want to get right to the point of what it is you want to see done or not done when you have that meeting, because they're running through a lot of people a lot of the time. So you want to be concise and get right to the heart of it. And you can't use your jargon and your knowledge, because you are the experts. Members of Congress are generalists, so you got to kind of explain it to them. You know, those books, how a dummy plays bridge or a dummy builds a, that's what you got to do. The dummy's got to understand what your issue is and how you want it addressed, and not just in very complicated language.
One of the things that we're really trying to push for here in Nevada is the ease of entrance into our industry. You know, we have people coming from different states with a band and some fans and saying that they're professionals and really wreaking havoc in our community. So what can we do to move that process forward, to create some kind of licensing barrier to entry into this industry?
Well, oftentimes you'll say business, we don't want any regulations, we don't need regulations. We don't want licensing, that's a heavy hand of government. But the truth is, sometimes that's helpful because it keeps bad apples out of an industry. And the better you do, the more you are respected, and the more you can keep those kind of people out who often undercut what you are doing in terms of employment or benefits for their employees, or not living up to the standards that you all live up to, can make a real difference. I think most of licensure takes place at the state level, so I think you need to get ready for the next session of the legislature. I don't know if you have a particular person in the legislature who can be an advocate for you, someone who might have a particular interest in an area that's related to what you all do, who could take up the banner and introduce the legislation. That would be the first choice. Second choice is to find somebody on the committee that will hear the issue, and I suspect it's the Commerce Committee in the legislature that looks at licensure and those sorts of things. So I greatly appreciate it, and I hope you'll think of me as a partner. You can find my office pretty easily because we have a cutout of Elvis outside the door, just so you'll know that's where we are. So thank you very much.
I guess the question for most people is, what is advocacy? And advocacy is really about getting involved in the political and the regulatory processes and to support the necessary changes and actions for you and for our industry. Advocacy is vitally important to the success of any business, any organization, and really any individual. Nearly every company, nonprofit, and trade association has some form of advocacy or lobbying. So, for instance, Amazon, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, trade unions, they all have more than likely lobbyists on staff, or they're paying lobbyists to go to DC, to go to their state legislatures, and to their local legislatures, and say, hey, this is how your law, your regulatory issue would affect us, and this is how you can actually change it or make it better. So I oftentimes hear from folks the phrase, I just don't care about politics. And I can tell you one thing, that politics cares about you. If you're writing a letter or an email, especially most of the time what you're going to do is you're going to know who your legislator is, and you're going to say, all right, well, I want to set up a meeting. So you're going to write an email. Don't give away everything in that email, because don't tell them everything that you're going to talk about in the meeting, because that's going to dictate whether or not I actually meet with you, if I'm a legislator. If I don't really know, I have a vague understanding of what you're talking about, I still need to have that conversation. But if you've thrown it all out there in the email, there's no point in us having a conversation, especially if I don't really care about the issue. Use bullet points. It's very quick, very effective. And also, if you're requesting a meeting, put in the subject line, and you're a constituent meeting request. And the constituent aspect of this is very important, because if we would get calls all the time on bills, if HB 100 was a controversial bill or something like that, we get calls left and right from people saying, don't vote for this or vote for this. First thing I'd ask them is, are you a constituent? I mean, we were getting like 150 phone calls a day on one bill. And I'd say, well, are you a constituent? No, I live in, okay. And I hang up. Because I don't have time. I have so many constituents. The representatives have, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but representatives are representing, Rep. Titus is probably representing 700,000 people. I don't have time for the other, millions of people that are living in Nevada. I have time for the people that are in my district that I was elected to work for. At the state level, we have less. I think there's an average of like 100,000 folks that they're representing, and at the state level or the local level, they're more than likely it's just whatever town you're in or the little ward or district that they have. Well, that does conclude the event. Thank you guys for coming. We are going to have some beverages and some extra stuff out there, just network, and feel free to come talk to me if you want to if you have some other questions or want to just talk, whatever you want to do. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming to our 7 a.m.